He has frequency points on our body, basically, based on the Hebrew language.
That this type of laying on of hands was known during the biblical time.
And could this have anything to do with Jesus healing when he walked the face of the earth and he touched people and healed them? He knew God's alphabet.
And your real DNA is actually spiritual.
We as God's people can battle this mark of the beast by understanding God's frequency. All right, we're talking to Dr. Monzo about God's signature on our body. The Hebrew language is actually somewhere on our body, found on the body. Doctor, what's that all about?
Yes. So this is something I've spent a considerable amount of time on, probably over the last 12 years or more. So I have a book. If I can get that right, I cannot get it right. But Aleph, Tav, Body. So what that means is Aleph is the first letter in Hebrew and Tav is the last. So it's kind of like saying A to Z. And what I found out is we have electromagnetic telecommunication command centers on the body. Most people are familiar with something like acupuncture. Well, this is similar, but much different, because acupuncture actually turns out to be a very superficial system on the body. And this is a much deeper system. And in acupuncture, you have thousands of these energy points, but in this system, you only have a few, and you have 1 point for every Hebrew letter. And they actually are Hebrew letters. And the reason we know this and how I figured it out is they have their own resonating frequency. And their resonating frequency just happens to be the same number as the Hebrew letter. And then it gets deeper. When we began to map out all the functions that these points in the body controls, you get a concept of what each point does in the body. And when you look at what that point does, it just happens to match the same meaning of the Hebrew letter, because the ancient Hebrew letter were pictographs. They were literally pictures. So they actually had meaning. And all the points are very similar. And these points are all over the body. And there's a lot of symbolic nature to them. So they are the control points that send information throughout the body. That's why it's a telecommunication system for the formation and function of the body, even to controlling the body's real DNA. And your real DNA is actually spiritual. There's a spiritual, energetic DNA that's perfect. But what happens is when that manifests into the physical, you get the physical DNA that all the scientists are looking at. And a lot of that is dependent upon how his language is working on your body, which is also dependent on our lifestyle. And the more we're in line with his word, the better our body functions, because our body's made out of his word. So, I mean, it's right there. So that's what my 12 years of researching this system is all about.
So Dr. Monzo, let me put this in layman's terms. Let me summarize it. Basically, the Hebrew language was pictures, which actually are numbers. These numbers are on certain parts of the body, the human body, and these numbers tie into certain frequency, which is what you work with. You work with frequency. You've been doing it for a long time. So you understand the world of frequency, and I agree with it. I agree that we are frequency, and we are affected by frequency. We're actually being attacked by frequency, but God also has a frequency. So what you're saying is God's frequency, he has frequency points on our body, basically, based on the Hebrew language, based on the pictures, the writings, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, when you said this, you know what came to mind is a battle. You've got Satan, the Antichrist, coming against the human body with all these viruses and, this, and you've got them trying to mess with our DNA, but God has his own system, his own frequency, and he controls our DNA. Doctor, in these last days, in these end times, as we talk about the mark of the beast, could it be possible that we as God's people, now listen to me, it's important, we as God's people can battle this mark of the beast by understanding God's frequency, by utilizing God's letters on our body, by letting this battle Satan's frequency.
That's correct. And it gets even more interesting because I have a whole chapter on history. And one of the most interesting things is this was rediscovered in Japan. And the Japanese people make it very clear that this was brought to Japan by lost tribes. And they even mentioned Moses. And the application of this system has been very simple, laying on of hands. Because your left hand is negative and your right hand's positive. So you actually have two polarities. And when you touch two Hebrew letter points, very light touch, just laying on of hands, that gets the body, the energy in the body to circulate, because that's how all circuits work, negative, positive. So it's very possible that this type of laying on of hands was known during the biblical time. And when they were laying hands on, they may have been laying hands on very specific Hebrew points with prayer.
Wow. And could this have anything to do with Jesus healing when he walked the face of the earth and he touched people and healed them? He knew God's alphabet. Of course, he was God. He knew where to touch them if he did touch them. Not all the time did Jesus touch people, but he could touch them spiritually. He knew the points to go after.
Exactly.
Doctor, could this play a part of that, where Jesus knew those acupressure points?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Wow, this is crazy. You know, I often wondered in the end times when they do introduce finally the mark of the beast, which the system is now in place. They've introduced the system. I don't want to get into the semantics of the mark, but I always wondered, how in the world is God going to deliver his people from taking the mark? But what you said makes total sense, because if God's frequency steps up to the plate, if God is controlling our DNA, if God's alphabet is on our bodies, all we have to do is understand that. And if we can utilize that, we have all the power in the world, right, against the Antichrist.
Correct.
I hope I portrayed enough to see, it's evil. And I'll be quite frank. I don't like Fauci. I don't like what he talks about. He's flip-flop Fauci. I'll just call him what it is. He's been back and forth with a lot of stuff. With what you're playing in The Last Evangelist, I think it really paints a picture of where we're headed. I think some of the stuff that you portray in that particular series is absolutely some of the stuff we're going to see in the near future.
All right. If you're interested in getting involved in Last Evangelist, our new TV series, which is coming out the first of the year, go to lastevangelist.com. You can sign the newsletter. You can even donate. And we do need your help. We really do. You can see on there the things you can do. You can special thanks. You can donate, get T-shirts, hats. You can come walk the red carpet. Hey, you can be in the movie. You can be an associate producer. You could even be an executive producer. This is how we're bringing this truth to you guys. I'm not going to the studio. God said, go to my people. That's what I'm doing. Go to lastevangelist.com or text the word evangelist to 41444, or you can make that call to 844-806-0006.
In these last days, people will worship false gods. As the Antichrist arises, Christians will be persecuted. David Heavener Investigates is proud to bring you End Times Investigations, a new DVD series containing over 8 hours of interviews, commentaries, and teaching on Illuminati and the New World Order, Satanism, miracles and healings, the Antichrist, and one world religion.
Hi, I'm David Heavener, and I'm proud to bring you this brand new DVD collection, End Times Investigations.
David reveals how the media is working hand in hand with the Antichrist system. Order now and receive this special DVD collection. Text bonus to 41444 or davidheavener.tv/order. Call toll-free 844-806-0006. Text BONUS to 41444 or davidhevner.tv/order. Call toll-free 844-806-0006.